One is the original sporty maxi scooter, the first over 400cc and the one to beat since 2001. It's the Yamaha TMAX. The other is an upstart that's taken the maxi scooter idea and reinvented it with aspirations of adventure. But are those aspirations a gimmick? Is the Honda X-ADV in fact any better off-road than anything else? And back in the real world, which works better as a maxi scooter? We took them both for a ride to find out. Here's what we learned. Engine. The X-ADV's engine has more of everything: cubes, power, torque, character. Both are parallel twins, but the TMAX is 530cc and the X-ADV 745cc. With 54 horsepower to the TMAX's 45 and 50 pounds-foot to the Yamaha's 39, the Honda has more urgency to it, and it sounds better too with a bit more rumble. An important difference lies in the transmission. The TMAX uses a continuously variable CVT belt drive, while the X-ADV has Honda's dual clutch transmission system, essentially a 6-speed automatic box with button shifters to let you choose gear yourself if you want. The advantage of CVT is that it gives you peak torque virtually constantly, and all you need to do is hold the throttle wide open. The X-ADV has more the feel of a motorcycle with a power curve in each gear, albeit a slightly bland one with a red line at just over 6,000 RPM. And while the TMAX can deliver more or less constant peak torque, the throttle response is not as direct as the X-ADV's. It takes a moment to wake up, in common with every CVT scooter I've ridden, although it's more direct than many of them. The TMAX never puts you in the wrong gear though, whereas you do have to occasionally correct the X-ADV's choices. For example, when it changes up just as you're planning an overtake. It's got two riding modes, S and D, with S holding lower gears for longer and D favouring economy. There's also a manual mode where you make all the choices yourself. Handling. The X-ADV handles more like a motorcycle too. It feels like the centre of gravity is higher and the sense of connection to it and the road is greater, inspiring more confidence for fast corners, and it changes direction, or seems to, a bit more quickly than the Yamaha. The TMAX is all maxi scooter with the engine lower in the chassis. Love them or hate them, even a sporty maxi scooter provides less information and feedback than a motorcycle, so you tend to keep a little more in reserve, especially in the wet. The plan was not to take the TMAX off-road, but having ridden the X-ADV up and down a gentle mile-long green lane in Hampshire a few times, we thought it might make an illuminating litmus test to try the Yamaha too. The aim was not to establish that the TMAX was suited to off-roading so much as to show by comparison whether the X-ADV could lay claim to being any better off-road than any bike or scooter. Standing up on the X-ADV, your legs are too close to the bars and the 17-inch front wheel feels like it could go sideways without much warning, especially on the dual sport tyres, Bridgestone trail wings and a wet muddy trail. That's all true of the TMAX too, on Bridgestone Batlax road tyres and an even smaller 15-inch front wheel. I hadn't expected to be able to stand up at all on it, assuming my legs would clash with the bars, but it wasn't so different to the X-ADV, awkward but possible. The X-ADV got up and down the soggy trail a couple of times safely, after which I felt it might be pushing my luck to continue. The TMAX made me even more nervous, but the fact is, it managed it too. The X-ADV of course has more ground clearance and its more direct throttle response is useful, especially in S mode, but it's definitely more soft-roader than off-roader. You could go trail riding on it insofar as you could on anything, even a TMAX if you're feeling brave enough. Suspension. You get more travel on the Honda too, 153mm in the fork and 150mm in the shock, compared to 120mm in the TMAX fork and 117mm in its shock. On the road, the place where it matters for a maxi scooter, that extra travel is useful for attaining comfort and composure on potholed city streets, which seem to be much more the natural habitat of the X-ADV than a trail. The 150mm ground clearance is useful for riding up and down curbs too. In contrast, it doesn't take too much to ground the TMAX. I think it's the centre stand that goes down first. But the TMAX's suspension keeps it well composed too. As I've said, it's sporty by maxi scooter standards, firm but still comfortable for a couple of hours in the saddle. You get preload and rebound damping adjustability in the TMAX's shock, while the X-ADV can be adjusted at both ends for preload in the shock and preload and rebound damping in the upside down fork. Brakes. The X-ADV outperforms the TMAX slightly in the front brake department. It's got radial mounted 4-piston Nissin calipers on twin 310mm discs, a similar setup to the Africa Twins. It offers easier bite and power than the TMAX's 4-pots on 267mm twin disc. But that said, the TMAX's setup is completely adequate. In the 6 months of using one as a long-term test bike, as I have been, I've had no worrying moments. Equipment. This is where the TMAX makes up a bit of ground. It doesn't have riding modes, you need the higher spec TMAX DX for that, while we tested the base model, but it is better endowed with those assets that usually define a maxi scooter. The wind protection on it is near total, shielding every part of you from feet to shoulders. In contrast, on the Honda, your feet are a little exposed. It still kept me dry during an hour-long ride in drizzle, but I'd rather spend a cold motorway ride behind the expansive bodywork of the TMAX. You get a glove box and a bit more space to stretch your legs on the TMAX, along with a slightly more natural scooter-like riding position. On the X-ADV, the bars are higher, which is less ergonomic. You get more space under the seat on the Yamaha. I can easily fit a rucksack containing a big laptop in there for my ride to work, or a full-face helmet with room to spare when I park. On the X-ADV, the bag had to go in the optional top box. A full-face helmet fits snugly under the seat, but you won't get much else in there. And the Yamaha has a low maintenance belt final drive, while the X-ADV has a chain. Both of course have ABS, but the Yamaha trumps the X-ADV on traction control. It has it, the Honda doesn't. The X-ADV wins on screen adjustability though. It's a simple matter of twiddling a knob, while raising or lowering the TMAX screen requires hex keys, about 10 minutes, and probably some knuckle chafing. Both get a keyless ignition, centre stand and handbrake. The X-ADV's transmission system means you can put it in neutral, something that's not possible on the TMAX. We like the extra bit of attitude and performance the X-ADV brings to the maxi scooter concept. It's the one I'd rather be seen on at a bike meet. But of course the TMAX stays more true to the original maxi scooter concept with all the convenience that brings. Also, the TMAX's handbrake is better located than the X-ADV's on the left-hand handlebar. Engaged, it's in the way, meaning only an unstoppable buffoon could forget to disengage it before riding off. We don't like the X-ADV's wheel spokes proved too tightly packed to get my 19mm security chain through the rim. With scooter theft as it is, I want to use the biggest chain at my disposal. On the TMAX, that glove box is a pain. It's difficult to open with a gloved hand and usually takes 2 or 3 slams before it will stay shut. Verdict. The price is exactly the same at $9,599, so that doesn't help us here. It's down purely to merit. I see a maxi scooter as a kind of two-wheeled car. You've got the traffic beating potential of a bike, but you're behind a windscreen with your feet in front of you and your luggage in the boot. And that's what I want from a maxi scooter. Otherwise, I'd be on a motorcycle. The X-ADV's modest advantage in performance isn't quite enough to make up for sacrificing some of that maxi scooter practicality. So, the X-ADV gets points for pushing boundaries, for being a maxi scooter with an interesting new twist, but the TMAX wins for doing a better job of being a maxi scooter.